Have you ever wondered why a woman seems to know exactly who you are before you've even figured it out yourself? She looks at you, studies you, and within minutes she has already made her decision. You think you're just meeting her for coffee, or sitting beside her in class, or exchanging casual words at a bar, but in her mind, she's already placed you in a category. You may think you're hiding your insecurity, your hesitation, or your over-eagerness. You may believe you're presenting confidence when deep down you're filled with doubt. But she sees it. Women see it first. They know your value before you do. And the truth is, they often know whether they'll respect you, test you, or discard you before you even open your mouth. This isn't mystical. It's pattern recognition. Women are wired to sense value, not the value you project, but the value you embody. That's why sometimes a guy who doesn't even try, who isn't loud, who doesn't show off, suddenly has every woman leaning in. He carries something invisible yet undeniable self-possession. Meanwhile, another man can buy drinks, crack jokes, show off his car, and still she looks at him like he's already beneath her. Why? Because he's advertising something he doesn't believe in himself. Think back to a moment when you really wanted a woman's attention. Maybe you texted her too fast. Maybe you laughed a little too hard at something that wasn't funny. Maybe you offered to help her with something that didn't even need helping. At the time, you thought you were showing interest. But what she saw was a man placing himself below her, a man announcing that her approval mattered more than his dignity. And the second that balance tips, the game is already lost. Here's the harsh reality: most men don't realize how much women test for value. Because the tests don't look like tests. A woman ignores your message for a day. She makes a joke about you being too nice. She flirts with another guy in front of you just to see how you react. She suddenly acts cold after a night of being warm. If you don't recognize these patterns, you get caught. You react emotionally, you chase harder, you argue, you beg, or you withdraw in a sulking silence that screams weakness. And every reaction confirms to her exactly what she suspected: you didn't know your own value, so she took it from you. Now imagine a different man. The same woman ignores his message. He doesn't panic. He doesn't send a double text. He goes on with his day, fully centered, unaffected. She teases him for being too nice. He doesn't get defensive, he just smirks and shifts the conversation. She flirts with another man in front of him. He doesn't compete, doesn't grovel, doesn't get jealous, he simply maintains his presence, confident that if she wants to go, she can, and he won't chase. Do you see the difference? His actions declare his value louder than words. He doesn't need her approval. That's what makes him magnetic. This is the battlefield of modern dating. Your responses reveal everything. A woman doesn't need weeks to figure you out. She studies how you react in the micro moments. Do you hold your ground when she pulls away? Or do you collapse? Do you keep your attention on your purpose? Or do you let her emotional storms dictate your mood? She's not just attracted to who you are, she's testing whether who you are is solid or fragile. Here's your tactical shift: stop treating her attention as your oxygen. The moment you depend on her response to feel valuable, you've already lost. You need to reverse it. Let her attention be a bonus, not the foundation. The next time she withholds, don't chase match her pace or pull back further. The next time she teases, don't explain. Let silence or a playful smirk answer for you. The next time she flirts in front of you, don't compete. Stand firm in the knowledge that if she has to play games, she's lowering herself, not you. What you don't realize is that every man she meets is unconsciously broadcasting his level of self-worth. And most men broadcast emptiness. That's why she respects so few. That's why the rare man who carries himself with quiet power, who knows his value without flaunting it, instantly stands out. She knew your value before you did. The question is whether you'll wake up to it before she decides you're not worth her time. Have you ever been caught chasing when she pulled away? Did you ever double text or over-explain and regret it later? Which of these tests do you think you fail most often, and how do you usually react? Drop your story below, because your honesty might help another man see himself clearly for the first time. You probably don't realize how fast women calculate. They don't sit down with a checklist and analyze you like a spreadsheet. It's instinct, it's immediate, and it's frighteningly accurate. She notices the way your eyes shift when you speak, whether your voice wavers when challenged, how long it takes you to answer a text, how quickly you bend to please. These details might feel invisible to you, but to her, they scream everything about your value. Picture this: you're at dinner with her. The waiter gets the order wrong. A small moment, but she watches carefully. Do you panic, laugh nervously, and accept it just to avoid conflict? Or do you calmly, firmly, without aggression, ask for it to be corrected? That single reaction tells her whether you're a man who can lead in uncomfortable moments, or a man who folds the second tension arises. She won't say anything. She won't even acknowledge it directly, but she'll store it. And from that point forward, her behavior towards you will shift because you showed her who you are under pressure. Here's where men get destroyed. They think attraction is built on constant charm, generosity, or endless agreement. But attraction is tested in friction. She pushes because she wants to see what holds. If everything breaks, you've already lost her respect. You see, respect always comes before desire. A woman may enjoy attention, validation, even gifts from a man she doesn't respect, but she will never crave him. She will never look at him as someone she must have. She'll use him, but she won't surrender to him. That's why so many men get stuck in the nice guy trap. You give and give, thinking it's the path to her heart, while she quietly loses interest. You confuse being agreeable with being valuable. But value isn't agreement, it's standards. It's the unshakable sense that your world doesn't collapse if she disapproves. When you live from that place, you're untouchable. When you don't, you're fragile glass waiting to be shattered. Think about the last time a woman suddenly pulled back after things felt perfect. Maybe you thought she was losing interest, and so you overcompensated, texting more, asking if she was okay, trying to reassure her. But here's the brutal truth: she wasn't losing interest. She was testing. She wanted to see if your energy collapsed the second she withdrew hers. And when you panicked, you proved her suspicion you needed her attention to feel secure. That's when desire dies. What should you do instead when she pulls away? You mirror, not out of manipulation, but out of truth. If she slows her investment, you slow yours. If she takes space, you let her have it. You don't chase, you don't question, you don't interpret it as rejection. You stay rooted in your own rhythm, showing her that your self-worth isn't a puppet tied to her strings. Ironically, it's in that calm detachment that women feel the most drawn. They lean back in because they sense you're a man who cannot be controlled. I once knew a man who mastered this. He wasn't the richest, the tallest, or the most handsome, but he had an unshakable frame. When a woman tested him, ignoring a message, teasing him in public, trying to spark jealousy, he never collapsed. He would smile, stay composed, and sometimes even walk away if the energy felt disrespectful. Women chased him harder than the so-called perfect guys who bent over backwards. Why? Because his presence said one thing loud and clear: I know my value. I don't need you to confirm it. This is the shift you need. Stop thinking of her tests as attacks. They're opportunities to prove not to her, but to yourself that your worth doesn't fluctuate with her approval. Every time you respond with calm, every time you refuse to chase, every time you choose standards over desperation, you build an internal fortress that no game can penetrate. That's when women not only respect you, but become obsessed with you, because true obsession comes from the mystery of a man who doesn't break. Now ask yourself, how do you usually react When she goes cold, do you spiral or do you stay steady? Have you ever caught yourself giving more just because she gave less? And if so, what did it cost you? Share your answers, because the moment you admit it is the moment you start breaking the cycle. Imagine this: she's standing in front of you, smiling, laughing at your jokes, leaning in close. Everything feels smooth. And then she flips. She goes cold. She suddenly takes longer to reply. Her tone shifts, and the warmth vanishes. You feel your stomach drop. You start replaying everything in your head. Did I say something wrong? Did I do something to turn her off? That spiral is exactly where most men destroy themselves, because the truth is, the flip wasn't about what you did wrong. It was about her wanting to know if you could hold steady when the ground shakes. This is where the hidden game lives: attention withdrawal. Women know it's powerful. They may not even plan it consciously, but it's one of the strongest tools they have. When she pulls back, it creates a void. And most men rush to fill that void with frantic energy, more texts, more compliments, more effort. That's exactly what exposes you. It shows that your emotional stability depends on her consistency. And once that's revealed, she knows your value isn't rooted, it's borrowed. Here's the strategic truth when she withdraws. You don't chase the absence. You stand in it. You treat it like a mirror, reflecting your own calmness back at her. That's what separates men who keep respect from men who get discarded. If she takes 3 hours to reply, you don't punish her. You don't plead, you just respond at your rhythm. If she goes silent for a night, you don't send 10 messages asking where she is, you focus on your own life. That silence is your proving ground. Think about it like this: in every interaction, there's a frame. Either she's inside yours, or you're inside hers. When you chase her withdrawal, you've stepped into her frame, you've accepted her as the center of the dynamic. But when you remain centered, even when she pulls away, you're declaring silently, my world doesn't shift just because yours does. That declaration is what makes her come back. It's not the gifts. It's not the perfect words. It's the unshakable sense that your value exists with or without her. Let me give you a real scenario. A guy I knew was seeing a woman who suddenly started delaying replies. Hours, sometimes days. He panicked. He began sending double texts, then paragraphs, then apologies for things he didn't even know he did. Every message eroded her respect further until finally she ghosted him. Why not because she didn't like him, but because he showed her she was the anchor of his emotional world. She didn't want that burden. Another man handled it differently. Same situation, woman pulled back. Instead of chasing, he matched her pace. She took a day to reply. He took a day to reply. She sent one-line messages. He sent one-line messages. And all the while, he kept his focus on work, hobbies, his own rhythm. Within a week, she leaned back in, testing again, this time with more intensity. But because he didn't waver, because he refused to let her frame dictate his worth, she grew more intrigued. That intrigue turned into respect, and respect into attraction. The lesson is brutal, but freeing women don't just want your attention, they want to feel your value. If you hand that value away the second they withdraw, you fail the test. But if you keep it, if you let their silence echo against your stability, you become the man they chase. Here's your tactical application the next time she goes cold. Don't interpret it as loss. Interpret it as a moment to prove your detachment. If she takes hours, you take hours. If she withdraws, you don't fill the space, you let it breathe. If she plays hot and cold, you stay steady, unshaken. That steadiness is what makes her trust you. That steadiness is what makes her crave you. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you overreacted to silence? Have you ever caught yourself explaining or apologizing just to bring back her attention? And what happened when you did? Drop your experience in the comments, because every man who admits it helps another man avoid the same trap. There's a moment every man faces that separates the boys from the men. It's when you realize she's already made her judgment before you've even had the chance to prove yourself. You think you're building attraction with every compliment, every gesture, every bit of effort, but in her eyes, those things don't create your value. They only reveal it. She watches not what you give, but the cost of what you give. If giving to her empties you, if your energy feels desperate or needy, she knows you don't have abundance. And when you don't have abundance, your value collapses. Here's what most men miss. Women measure how much of yourself you sacrifice for their approval. That's why a man who cancels his plans just because she calls suddenly at the last minute doesn't win her respect. He loses it. He thinks he's showing her that she's a priority. She sees it as weakness. She sees that his life has no center beyond her, and instantly his attraction in her eyes fades. Now think about the opposite. A man who, when she calls last minute, says calmly, "I'd love to see you, but I already have plans. Let's do tomorrow." That tiny boundary, that refusal to bend instantly, does something powerful. It communicates that he values his own time, his own commitments, his own life. That's what makes her intrigued. Not the sacrifice, but the refusal to sacrifice too easily. This is the paradox men need to grasp. Women aren't drawn to how much you give up for them. They're drawn to how much of yourself you refuse to lose, no matter how much you want them. Your strength is in the lines you don't cross. When you bend over backwards, you think you're buying loyalty, but what you're really selling is your self-respect. And once she senses you'll sell that, she knows you'll sell anything. That's when she stops trusting you, stops respecting you, and eventually stops desiring you. Consider how this shows up in relationships. She asks you to skip the gym because she wants a lazy night in. If you always say yes, you're not just skipping a workout, you're teaching her that your discipline is negotiable. She'll push further. She'll see where else you're willing to give up who you are just to keep her happy. And every time you say yes at the cost of yourself, her respect slips further away. But if you say, "I'll be back after the gym, then we'll spend the evening together," you've set a standard, you've drawn a line. And even if she resists in the moment, deep down, she respects you for it. The truth is simple, but merciless women know your value before you do, because they see whether your boundaries exist before you've even realized you need them. And most men are terrified of boundaries. They think boundaries push women away. But in reality, boundaries are the only thing that make women want to stay. Without them, you're just another man who can be bent, used, or discarded. With them, you're the rare man who forces her to rise to your level. Here's your tactical move. Start noticing the small places where you fold. Do you reply instantly every time she messages, even when you're busy? Stop. Do you change your weekend just because she's bored? Don't. Do you let her mood dictate your energy? Refuse. These aren't small things, they're signals. Every choice you make teaches her exactly where you place yourself on the scale of value. Teach her that you're centered, disciplined, and immovable, and she'll never look at you the same again. Now reflect, how many times have you given up a piece of yourself just to keep her happy? Did it make her more loyal? Or did it only make her colder? And what boundary could you have set that would have changed everything? Be honest in the comments, because the truth you admit might be the first step toward reclaiming the respect you've been bleeding away. There's one thing you must accept. If you want to stop being played, women rarely break men directly. They study, they test, they pull, and they watch. And if you're weak, you'll do the breaking yourself. That's the cruel genius of their psychology. She doesn't have to tell you she's losing interest. She just withdraws her warmth, offers her attention to others, or makes a subtle comment about how busy she's been. Then she waits. And what do most men do? They start performing. They become entertainers, gift givers, emotional providers, desperate to win back something that was never really theirs to lose. Here's the deeper reality: women crave men who can stand alone in the storm. She'll throw chaos at you, not always to hurt you, but to see what you're made of. If every gust of wind blows you off balance, she knows you're not built for the weight of her trust. And understand this: women don't give their loyalty to men they can't trust with pressure. If you can't hold frame in small things, she knows you won't hold frame in big things. That's why her respect disappears without a word. Think about it. How many times have you tried to explain yourself to a woman who wasn't even listening? You wrote long messages trying to justify why you reacted, why you were upset, why you wanted things to work. But each word, instead of pulling her closer, pushed her further away. Not because your reasoning was wrong, but because explaining yourself is the behavior of a man begging for validation. And women don't desire men who beg. They test them, they toy with them, but they never give themselves fully to them. What should you do instead when the storm comes? You do nothing but stand. She goes cold. You remain warm with yourself. She flirts with another man. You don't compete. You let her see the contrast between the man who chases and the man who doesn't move. She accuses you of being distant. You don't argue, you simply keep your rhythm. This isn't passivity, it's strength. It's refusing to fight battles you don't need to fight. It's knowing that your energy is too valuable to be spent chasing shadows. I knew a man once who was constantly tested by the woman he dated. She would cancel plans last minute, drop cryptic comments about other guys, even disappear for a day just to see his reaction. Every time, he responded the same way: calm, grounded, almost indifferent. He never raised his voice, never begged for clarity, never lost sleep over it. At first, she grew frustrated because her usual tactics didn't work, but over time, she leaned in harder because she realized this man couldn't be broken by games. That's when she gave him her deepest respect. The danger isn't in her pulling away, the danger is in you collapsing when she does. Because every collapse teaches her that you don't know your own worth. And once that truth is out, it's almost impossible to recover. That's why the strongest men treat these moments not as threats, but as mirrors. Every time she tests, it's a reflection. Do I know who I am, or am I still waiting for her to tell me? Here's your tactical clarity the next time she pulls her warmth. Don't fill the silence with effort, fill it with yourself. Hit the gym, build your craft, stay disciplined. Posture doesn't save you here, presence does. If she's really interested, she'll come back stronger when she sees she couldn't shake you. If she's not, she'll drift away. Either way, you win. Because the point isn't to keep every woman. The point is to keep yourself. Ask yourself this: how many times have you broken your own frame because you couldn't handle her silence? How often have you explained, argued, or chased when deep down you knew it made you smaller? And most importantly, what would your life look like if you decided right now that no woman's approval could ever be worth more than your self-respect? Think about it and tell me below. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.